Wide receiver is a must draft for the New Orleans Saints in 2025. New Orleans targeting Arkansas star. All right, now the reason I wanted to do this video is because I saw these thumbnails on my YouTube homepage, okay? And I stared at them and I was befuddled. Both of them seemingly the exact same premise, seemingly focusing on the exact same guy. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was staring at these two thumbnails, and all I could think of was, who the f*** is that guy? So today, we're going to find out exactly who that guy is. I did a little research into who the hell he is, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see what these two hombres have to say. It looks like they switched up the beer selection on the desk. Now they got Dos Equis out there. Quick note, back in Biloxi, Mississippi at El Saltillo Mexican restaurant, me and a couple of my compadres who I won't name because of the story, used to go and pregame there before going out, and we used to get one of two things. One was a fishbowl margarita. We'd get 2 to 3. But the other thing was a beer tower. It was the greatest deal in the history of booze. You could get a beer tower for like $13, and the beer tower held like, it was like 9 or 10 beers. It was huge. It was huge. Like they would bring them out, and they were these giant plastic towers. I mean, Lord of the Rings style. And they would put them on the table, and they'd have their own little spigot, and you just let it rip. But Dos Equis was one of the beers that they would fill up the beer tower with. I had to quit drinking Dos Equis because Dos Equis draft gives me some of the worst heartburn in, I mean, it is like liquid magma levels of GERD.
Are you excited to talk about some potential New Orleans Saints draft picks? Hell yeah. Let's go, baby. Saints hosting.
Hold on. We should get the show started.
We should get the show started. Great job, Jordan.
It's time to get to work, courtesy of Tiger Labor and Staffing, where they can help take care of screening, training, payroll, and more. Now, for starters.
Tiger Labor and Staffing, your local staffing experts, guys. Remember,
the hell was
Tiger
that?
Labor and Staffing, one of the ways that they ensure that they find quality employees for your needs.
Did they not edit this? What is going on here? We're in a full-on Tiger Starters Labor and Staffing commercial. This is crazy. I mean, respect. Wow. All right.
Staffing needs.
Yeah.
So the New Orleans Saints are expected to host. And this is kind of interesting. I know I approach this a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it is a bit because I feel like we're in like a Groundhog Day pattern right now with Saints and LSU football, because it's just kind of the same conversations viewed from different angles. It's like, they're just perspective shifts, essentially. But the name we're about to talk about, I had no idea who this guy was, hand to God. He's kind of intriguing. And that is Arkansas wide receiver Isaac TeSlaa. The Saints are expected to host him on a visit. And we've talked a lot in this pre-draft process about the need for a big body receiver, right? You got Yalave, you got Shaheed. You got the small guys. You lose MVS. We need a big guy. Well, Isaac TeSlaa is not just big, but he is an athletic freak. He's 6'4", 214, and he ran a 4.4 340, a vert of 39.5 inches, broad jump 10.9, shuttle 4.05, three cone 6.85. Hell, he even benched 225 17 times. And Jake, wait till you get a load of this. A relative athletic score. RAS.
RAS. We know all about RAS. Shamar Stewart, 10.0. We talked about RAS, where RAS is basically should be used for drafting for the Olympics, but for some reason they use it to draft for the NFL.
Yes, the Saints' favorite metric of 993. So I don't know, Jake. You probably know, not probably, you know way more about the draft than I do. Do you have any idea where TeSlaa's kind of being mocked? Like, what pick would this be for the New Orleans? He had about 500 yards for Arkansas last year.
Okay, so this is kind of the issue, and I hinted at this in a video previously about like base, like you got to have some kind of a statistical benchmark of what you expect people to do, what their base value is, like what you're actually bringing them in for, how is it going to translate into the NFL? You know, like at a certain point, you got to quit worrying about the 40 or broad jumps or verts or whatever, unless they are doing that, unless that is a component of the, of the job. At a certain point, you got to kind of get away from that and figure out, like, okay, well, what exactly are we talking about here, right? Now, when you look at, what the hell is this guy's name? Isaac TeSlaa. So Isaac TeSlaa had a 58.2. He played 2 years at Arkansas, I guess. In 2023, he had a 58.2 overall grade. He played 12 games. He had 34 receptions, 64 targets, and he had 351 yards for 10 yards per reception, basically, and 2 touchdowns. The following year, his production went down. His usage went down. He had a 69.1 overall grade. 13 games played. He had 28 catches, so obviously less. He had 36 targets, which is dramatically less than the 64. And he had 532 yards and 3 touchdowns. On the big board in PFF, last year he was the 314th graded wide receiver in college. In 2023, he was the 821st receiver in college. I think I was 820. He's a 112 on the big board. And I'll tell you what's concerning is that they don't even have a scouting summary. He's scouting summary coming soon. This is from Pro Football Focus. They have a scouting summary on basically everyone on earth. They have a scouting summary on Pat Bryant. I think Pat Bryant works for DoorDash. Bryant lacks the top-tier athletic qualities to be a day-one outside receiver. He possesses a strong build, good hands, and reliable blocking. They have a scouting report on Pat Bryant, but they don't have one on Isaac TeSlaa. Okay? So, really, I mean, like I said, I can't wait to hear about this young hombre.
Here's their second leading receiver.
And he's one of those guys that's going to go anywhere between the 4th and the 6th round.
Oh, okay. I kind of love that as a value play.
And more closer to the 6th round than the 4th round, if that makes sense. And I think it's because of what you just laid out as far as how athletic he is. And look, he had over 500 yards in the SEC. He transferred to Arkansas from Hillsdale College, which is Division II, right? So he's not somebody that was identified at a high school, so a little bit of a late bloomer, or just somebody missed on him because he's got all the measurables, and he certainly has the athletic ability to be able to go out there and be successful. He's got return ability as well.
So there was an interesting quote I saw. I think we talked about it on the channel, but it was like, it was about Shamar Stewart, and it was basically like, if he has good pass rushing qualities, why doesn't he pass rush good? And the same I would say for this video is a vehicle, if you haven't figured out by now. I'm not talking about Isaac TeSlaa. All right, I'm talking about the idea of just throwing a dart and identifying receivers off of athletic, or players off of athletic traits or RAS score or body composite. That is something that for sure people do when it comes to the draft process. We'll hear about, like, Shamar Stewart is a fantastic example. It's like, yeah, take him 9th overall. It's like he's had 1.5 sacks the last 2 years. If this RAS score is so great, and blank is so great, and blank is so great, and his broad jump is so great, why isn't he rushing the passer great? Like, at a certain point, you have to marry and sometimes they do marry. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, this is why these skills aren't transferring on the field. Okay, this is how we're going to fix it. And then, sometimes it works out. But just going to big body receiver sort filter. Okay, here's one. That's a dangerous proposition.
As well, and so that's
And my last point here before we keep going, I would much rather a productive 5'11", 170-pound receiver than trying to force this like body or this RAS score thing. Just give me production. Give me good players. What is also kind of funny about this is that this is kind of the trap that the New Orleans Saints have fallen into the last couple of seasons. And when you look at draft busts and you look at the players that people are frustrated with the Saints in drafting, it's the raw, athletic, big-bodied, they have a lot of raw potential, but they just need to be developed, and they never play. They don't develop. They're not good. They're not good football players, and they never play. And after a few years, we're looking around going, man, these were all wasted picks. Like these are just wasted projects. And this is what that is. This would be that. And I'm not saying specifically Isaac TeSlaa, but just, look at the RS score. Look at the body composite. Look at this. Maybe we can develop him. That's what we're trying to get away from. I'm not saying never draft a project or never draft that, but I do think it's interesting that has been the idea that we've been trying to move away from. And now, in the never-ending world of draft talk, we're right back to it.
something the Saints, could use, because you have a Rashid Shaheed who probably doesn't need to do that anymore, even though he's really good at it. You got to keep that guy healthy. You need him as your number 2 receiver. This is also somebody that was really good down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. He was turning heads.
Oh, really?
I understand every reason why he would be on a visit.
You take a shot on this guy. You're telling me 6th-round pick with those numbers? That's insane.
Yeah, and again, everything that you need at that position, he fits. You're looking for somebody that's not the 5'11", 195 or the 6 foot, 200-pound receiver. You're looking for somebody 6'4", 215.
I think when it comes to visits with players like this, and again, remove Isaac TeSlaa out, just keep the idea. I think this is a good bridge to cross where you see a player like this, you see the measurables at any position. I think it's good to give them a private workout or to visit or whatever, because you do have to figure out what is missing? This is something that stands out. Why isn't it translating? What is the holdup here? How are these things in a package together, but there's nothing coming out of it? Sometimes you got to see that for yourself, and sometimes it is absolutely worth a look, because in certain scenarios, that is how you can find the diamond in the rough, for sure. So the visit, I think, is more of a in these situations, I think it's more of an investigation than it is a symbol of targeting or being interested in someone.
So he's coming on a visit. Georgia edge rusher Mikael Williams just had a visit with the Saints. Saints had also met with him when they hosted that dinner for all the Georgia players. So they've done their homework on Mikael. And I know that if the Saints were to draft him, it would trigger a lot of people because he's kind of a potential type of guy.
Yeah.
He's got freakish numbers, freakish size, but he's a pass rusher that has not met his ceiling at all. But I also want to hesitate, Jake, he is a potential guy, but he's not Marcus Davenport and Peyton Turner.
No,
he has 14 career sacks. He did it in the SEC.
Right.
He was a key piece and started on a Kirby Smart Georgia defense for multiple years. This is not.
Yeah, it says Marcus Davenport coming from UTSA. And something else philosophically, the words reach and value and bust and all that, there is a slope, some kind of a slope situation where at a certain point you're not reaching. At 9, you're reaching. At 40, you're reaching. Even at 70, you're reaching. Once you get into that 5th round, 6th round, you're not really reaching. If you've identified somebody in the 5th round that you're I love this guy. I love him. We're probably taking him 20 spots too high, but we're in the 5th round. that's when you're eliminating the idea of reach. You're eliminating all of that. And at that point, the slope all of a sudden now value trumps the fear of reaching. At 9, you don't want to reach. If you like somebody, but you're like, well, they probably are like a 27th overall pick, 25th overall pick, you cannot do that reach at 9 because of who you are passing up. In the 5th round, you reach 20 picks for somebody, it's okay because relative to that, the people around you or the prospects around you aren't that good because you're in the 5th or 6th round. So that's another big difference where Marcus Davenport and Peyton Turner were on the end of that slope where reach was much more in the equation, where because of who you are passing up, the reach risk is much higher versus players like this who you're getting much later in the draft.
I know if the Saints were to draft him, and I understand it, cynically, people would probably be up in arms. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't be a little like, that's unexciting. But I also don't want him painted like drafting Marcus Davenport or Peyton Turner because it's also definitely not that.
No, it's not that. It's somebody that's done it at the highest level in the Southeastern Conference. I think no matter who.
Yeah, I mean, let's take a look at like where the big board has him. Let's get off Isaac TeSlaa. Let's get off Isaac TeSlaa for a second. All right, Michael Williams is 26th on the PFF rank. Okay, so like he's out of the, like he's a perfect example where it's like, all right, and now granted, PFF's big board isn't the end all be all, but if the Saints do have a 26th-ish pick, if he is on their big board at around 26, you can't reach for him at 9. Now, if he slides, you can absolutely make a play for him at 40. Okay, 41. So, are in that range, right? So, yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys, and that's kind of the no man's land. You know, that's kind of the no man's land for a lot of these players, and the no man's land where, yeah, he's good. Yeah, you might like him. Yeah, he might fit, but then you have to start factoring in like reach and what you're giving up and all that.
Who you ask, he is a surefire top 10 prospect, coming up in this draft, and so you wouldn't be reaching like when I think we were together. I don't remember. I was with someone when the Saints selected Patrick Turner, and I just remember we all were like,
I think I was maybe was that the Pelicans Suns game? Was that the draft? I don't know. Were you at Don Juan maybe or no?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I was there that night.
Maybe it's Jimmy. I don't know. It was somebody, and we're looking at each other like, what in the hell?
If you said Pelican Suns, then it definitely was 2021 draft.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah.
Funnily enough, Jake, you actually just called him Patrick Turner. And I'm sure nobody batted an eye because who knows what his actual name is.
Yeah.
He's given you no reason to remember
I did this before because Peyton Turner is not as good as Patrick Turner, the receiver, was in the NFL.
There you go.
He at least played games. So Peyton Turner, exactly. But when they,
I mean, again, I'm not calling you out. I'm trying to reinforce the point.
I don't care. No, when they selected him, I was like, who?
It's one of the hardest things in the world, I will say, and I really focus on it. But it's super hard, especially when you're doing a ton of radio and hours on end, and you're mixing college with pros, and for me, I watch a lot of different sports, so getting names accurate like that just off recall, very hard. I think that is something that I think fans hit, or they dig on commentators or hosts or whatever about more than they probably should, because it is so hard to just on recall just have all that separated, because a lot of last names like Turner, for example, there's a million different Turners across a million different sports, some of them more prevalent than others, and then so anytime I hear that, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's like Mike Francesa is one of the guys, old school radio guy that I don't want to say mentors. He's not a mentor. I've never met the guy, but just someone who I listen to, and I'm like, oh, I could do that. Whatever. He did 5 hours of radio a day in New York, which is crazy. 5 hours of sports talk radio every single day, and he's covering all of New York sports. So you think about all the different names, all the different teams, all the different. It's just. That is a very overlooked and underrated skill and level of difficulty in sports radio.
Who's Peyton Turner?
I had no idea.
And I feel like I know the draft pretty well.
True.
And I was like, who? Who's this fella? But edge rusher, like we asked Nick this the other day, and he didn't really have an answer, and I'm not calling him out. I just don't think it's clear. But if you asked me maybe what you have to have, I do think edge rusher is something that you have to have in this draft.
So insane.
I know.
Because you
So this is something else that people are getting kind of caught up with. So I've said the Saints do not need an edge rusher at 9. I've said they don't need a cornerback in 9. But that doesn't mean they don't need an edge rusher at all or a cornerback at all. You know, like, you factor things in, you look at the value, you look at the importance of the position. I think an edge rusher would be insane to take at 9 because of how many you have, or just how many pass rushers you have. But yeah, you probably, if you like one later, take one later. Same with defensive back. I don't think you should take one at 9, but if you took one at 40, I wouldn't bat an eye. Right? Like, you got to kind of figure out where you're going to strike on these positions. So, I agree. Tackle is another one. I think the Saints, if they want to add another tackle, fine. But I think taking one at 9 is crazy because you're taking a rotational player. You're taking a guy where you're not totally sure where he's going to go. You know, I've heard a lot of people say you have to take offensive line or defensive or edge at 9. And it's like, well, then what do you do with them? Let's say you take a tackle. What do you do with them? You're not moving them to left tackle. So what are you doing with Trevor Penning? Like, you're moving him to guard? Or are you just getting Trevor Penning out of there? Like, what's your plan? And a lot of people come back and they say, well, we'll just, it'll be a battle and we'll figure it out. So that doesn't sound like something you'd want to do with a 9th overall pick. Edge rusher. Let's say you draft an edge rusher. What do you do with him? Is he going to start over Chase Young? Is he going to start over Carl Granderson? Is he a rotational player? And if that's the case, take that in the 2nd round. Take that in the 3rd round. Like, there's got to be some kind of path. There's got to be some kind of like linear, like, okay, this is how he gets on the field. This is how he impacts. Now, remember, that's when like statistical benchmarks come into place. That's when things like that come in. Because you got to have this base rate statistical benchmark that you want this player to achieve. And if you believe that a player later on can achieve the same thing, like LSU's Brady Swinson out of LSU. Okay, where do they have him on here? Where am I? Oh, interior. Oh, God. Let's see. Like Braden Swinson. Okay, really good player. 83.3 grade last year. Good player. Starting 3-4 edge player. This seems like exactly. Now, length is a bit of an issue at 6'4", whatever, but doesn't matter. Like, this is the kind of edge rusher you want, right? Like, okay, he probably fits the rotational mold, high ceiling, okay, whatever. And then, all right, if you can take him in the 2nd, 3rd round, boom. I would much rather that than take Mike Green. And he's doing the same thing. It's the same statistical benchmark, but you're paying a much higher premium. Oh, and you factor in who you potentially could be passing up at 9 to take Mike Green, which on average is way higher than who you'd be passing up at 40 to take Braden Swinson. All right? And then you can keep going and keep pushing it off like Kyle Kennard or whoever, Elijah Roberts or whatever. So again, it's just something to think about with how, because it's so easy, especially right now in this process, 2 weeks away from the draft, less than, and people are just throwing names at the wall, just like boom, boom, you take him, don't take him, take this body type, take whatever. But there absolutely has to be an analytical approach to this. And there absolutely is a mathematical component to assigning value and all of that to these players and the positions and the rounds and all that stuff. The NFL has changed on the field. We can all agree with that. The NFL has changed on the field with how they approach things. EPA and yards per, like all the metrics that we talk about all season long has pushed on the field into like this new evolution. The same thing has to be the case for the process like this of the draft and free agency. Relying on bench press and the 40 ain't it anymore. There's got to be, and there are, better ways to do it. And that's what we're exploring here today.
Drafted Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
And then drafted.
And you just gave Chase Young a lot of money.
You drafted Trey Hendrickson,
But the funny
the
part,
NFL sack leader, and now you're out here shaking your hat for edge rushers.
yeah. And your Hendrickson replacements don't have a combined as total as Hendrickson has had.
It's insane.
Crazy.
Tay, we got to go to break, but I saw you move your mic over. Did you want to add something here?
You need to stop talking about my new favorite Dallas Cowboys, is what you need to stop doing.
Who,
yeah.
Mikel
Peyton
or
Turner.
Peyton Turner.
Oh, yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. Thank you for watching. Fun little discussion, couple goofs, couple gaffes. I will see you in the next video.